It is so powerful because it takes away anything that may differentiate us. And we're all there because we have hearts that want to do good. It's that commonality that brings us together, which is caring for our community and wanting health, wanting to give, wanting to serve. And that's that commonality that we all have in all of our faiths.
On In Good Faith, we believe that all faith traditions have something to teach us about how God is working in the world and in our lives. So join us as we listen and learn. Welcome to In Good Faith. This is one of our episodes in our Atlanta Interfaith miniseries. You can catch previous interviews with two civil rights activists, Sherry Frank and Reverend Gerald Durley, both in their 80s. We also heard from the president of Interfaith Atlanta, Rabbi Ellen Nemhauser, and we heard music from Lapidus and Miles, an interfaith duo of two sons of long-standing Atlanta religious communities, the Temple and Ebenezer Baptist. We also heard from Angela Rice, who leads Atlanta's interfaith community initiatives, bringing locals together to explore the world and Atlanta. Upcoming, we have a book club episode where we'll discuss Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. But today, we'll hear from the vice president of an interfaith organization dedicated to feeding local Atlantans. Today on In Good Faith, I'm so pleased to be speaking to a representative from the Sandwich Project, and I'm going to tell you the website right now because you might want to go to it as we talk, thesandwichproject.org. And I'm pleased to be speaking now with a volunteer board member and the vice president with the Sandwich Project, speaking with Laura Baldwin. Laura, thank you for speaking with me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
In addition, Laura works full-time in public health, has a great family. She's dedicated to serving her community, and she's been a volunteer with the Sandwich Project since 2021 and joined the board last year in 2023. So on the average, she collects between 200 and 400 sandwiches at her home that gets distributed to local organizations serving those who might be experiencing food insecurity. Laura, let me just start. When you first heard someone say, the Sandwich Project, what did you think that was? What did that mean to you?
I didn't know what it meant. How I first heard about it, if you're interested to get the lay of the land, there's a Jewish Moms of Atlanta Facebook group. And in the midst of COVID, there was a lot of parenting advice that was being given out on this Facebook group. People trying to say, how do we help the community? What do we do? And somebody started talking about making sandwiches in the garage in a safe way with their neighbors, where you could support your community, protect your health, wear a mask, have gloves on. And I just thought, wow, that's a nice way to continue to give to our community, something I can do with my family, and I could get my neighbors involved too, so I could build some social connection. So there was a win-win.
I'm picturing you telling your family, guess what, guys? We're going to make sandwiches in our garage or kitchen or wherever. How did that go over?
What happened is I went to an organization nearby that was giving away free bread. And I said, sure, I'll take some free bread and I'll use it to make sandwiches for the Sandwich Project. I opened my trunk and they loaded my trunk with over 200 loaves of bread. So I didn't know really what I was getting into. And I had these pallets of bread and I ended up calling neighbors, sent something out to all my son's classmates. We have a small community within of families that belong to our synagogue as well as go to the school that our son goes to. I was like, come, please make sandwiches, take bread, make sandwiches with your soccer team, your baseball team. Then all the sandwiches came back to me within 24 hours.
Just so we understand, this came about during COVID-19. And why sandwiches? I have a few ideas why. I have some guesses, but talk to me about why sandwiches work and then just about this whole, how do they get to the people who need them?
Yeah, and this was very organic, very grassroots. We noticed as we were driving around that where people were going for food to get community food boxes, services that were set up for those experiencing food and housing insecurity, a lot of the services were paused. at the time.
Yeah.
Schools were paused. The school food distribution systems hadn't caught up yet, where students were getting delivered food. There were more people walking, looking for food. And it just became, well, if we can make some sandwiches, that's something that's very simple, protein rich, and it could make a huge difference in somebody's life. So it was as simple as seeing a need and having a desire to say, let's try this.
Yeah. I'm not a great cook, but I'm not embarrassed to make a sandwich. How could I fail?
And it's something that people of all ages can do and all abilities. So we have people making sandwiches that's with different type of intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, families of all ages, grandparents and grandchildren. You know, it's a wonderful way to bring community together.
And speaking of community, I mean, you called people in your synagogue, your son's team, your school friends, whoever. What I saw at Atlanta was that there were booths and displays from so many different congregations, every kind of faith tradition you could imagine. And yet they all came together to work on this project that was held there. And their goal, I think, was 1,000 that day. To see, the Hindu ladies there with the Baptist ladies, with the other ladies, and everybody just working together in this assembly line. And then some of the youth groups came in. I was just so impressed.
For that festival, they had a goal of 1,000 sandwiches, and they made over 2,200 that day.
Have you seen this draw people together in the community from different traditions?
Absolutely. It is so powerful because it takes away anything that may differentiate us. And we're all there because we have hearts that want to do good.
Yeah.
It's that commonality that brings us together, which is caring for our community and wanting health, wanting to give, wanting to serve. And that's a commonality that we all have in all of our faiths.
Yeah. And then where does all the food come from? You mentioned getting loaded up with extra bread. Was that a one-time thing or ongoing? And where do all the other sandwich ingredients and fruit, et cetera, come from?
Great question. Depends on the week, I'll tell you. Certain weeks, local organizations may have excess and they'll donate to us. Certain weeks, we use money that's been donated and we buy supplies, and families use money. I can tell you an example for our family when we started to do this. That major sandwich making the first time, that was big. But then as a nuclear family of three, instead of getting an allowance, my son, I would give him $15 and I would pull up outside the grocery store and it was a math lesson. How much supplies can he buy with $15?
Okay, you're a good mom. You're showing some great parenting skills here too.
Thank you. And it's awing to see how much you can buy supplies, whether it's peanut butter and jelly, especially if you're looking. Often stores have peanut butter or jelly, buy one, get one free, or if it's a meat and cheese, how you can stretch dollars. But with $15, he could make on average close to 35 sandwiches of meat and cheese sandwiches, even more if it was peanut butter and jelly. And where that I knew I was doing good from a parenting moment was then a few weeks later, we went to pick up sushi, to be honest. And he saw the bill and he just was like, whoa, mom, we could have fed 80 people with that money instead of just the five of us having dinner tonight.
You had really gotten him thinking.
I did. Again, we're doing this to serve others. But also for those of us that are raising children, we want to raise giving, caring adults too. And that level of empathy, awareness is very special. And it's not something I think you can read in a book. I think it's that hands-on experience. And then also taking him to deliver sandwiches is very powerful too.
So I want to ask about that, who they end up with and that process, especially if your kids are helping you deliver. You mentioned that you're part of synagogue. Is that how you grew up in a religious home where faith was an element? And does this project connect with your faith?
I grew up in a Reformed Jewish home, and service was always part of our life. I've always been a dedicated volunteer working with different communities. Definitely was not did not make 50 sandwiches a week growing up, but I was involved in other activities with my parents. And I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, not in Atlanta. Here now in Atlanta, we belong to a synagogue that has a service component to it, and they create opportunities for families to get involved in whatever way families like to get involved. Some families prefer to make a donation financially to bring cans. Some would rather make sandwiches or make, our synagogue every year makes birthday boxes for foster children that may not get birthday presents. So they pull together gift boxes, then donate them to the foster care system. So I think that there's different ways to give and different ways to get involved. It's been a wonderful way to open a door for our family, but then we've taken it and opened it a lot wider.
Well, I just think of all of the injunctions, really in every faith, there is some element that you could translate roughly as either do not do to others what you would not have done to yourself, or treat others as you wish to be treated. Mm-hmm. And that is really across the board. It's sort of the whole golden rule principle. I don't know, when you're doing this, you must recognize, I am doing something that I would want people to help me if I was in a situation where I did not have housing or food.
Very much so. And I've met some of the recipients who have been warmed by receiving our sandwiches and food. And the stories that they've told me, some of these families, some of these fellow mothers that I've met, they are hardworking, loving mothers that are living currently in an extended stay hotel with their family.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 family members in an extended stay hotel. And they get paid daily. And that money goes right to paying the fees there. So they can't get a break to get ahead to save money for a deposit for an apartment. That's what they need, is a deposit, that money for deposit for an apartment.
It's like they could pay the rent, but they can't do the rent, first month's rent and the deposit at the same time.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. And then if they get our sandwiches and the sandwiches can cover their food for a couple days, that's a couple days of money that they can start saving up.
Yeah.
And it helps them break a cycle.
You've just now mentioned some people receiving that particular situation. I've also heard that there were people who knew where people weren't coming to a shelter, that they were just out on the street. In one case, even living out in the woods, and they went to them. How did that go? And what was the response?
It's very powerful. So to give you a specific story, often on Fridays, sandwiches get picked up from our garage here. The organization is called the Elizabeth Foundation. They'll come and pick up close to 300 sandwiches. They have trained social workers, interventionists, mental health specialists that go into the camps that are around town. And I don't like to use that language to call them camps, but that's the language that they're referred to.
It sounds wise also that you just said people who are trained and know how to work with people in different states of distress.
Yes. So I don't have that training, but I'm happy to help somebody else be successful in their job and make a difference. They use something as simple as a sandwich, an orange, a granola bar, as a way to build trust with those that are needing support. They come every day, they offer them food. It opens the door to a conversation. They find out what they need. What services do they need? What medication do they need? What are their challenges? And then they try to get them whatever would make a difference in addition to food. Over time, they've been able to get people into medical care, into rehabilitation services, into therapy, reconnected with family, just from that simple, here's a sandwich, let's talk conversation, that door opening. And then they're off the streets. Over time, they are able to get them into an extended stay hotel or into a therapeutic community or whatever type of services.
Laura, what you just said about you are supplying food, but it hadn't occurred to me the amount of trust that people in some situations might need to consider going to anything connected with a government agency or a city foundation or something. Wow.
Right. So it takes those repeat visits to know this person really cares about me. This
Hmm.
person's serious. And then for those organizations to see, wow, this is a community that's come together. It's a family or a soccer team or a Boy Scout club or a youth group that made sandwiches that got to this trained social worker who is now walking in the community, in the woods, or into the low income housing, into extended stay hotels, and is able to make a difference. It's that 1 degree of separation.
Yeah. I am so touched, really, by the whole fact that people say, well, there are so many homeless people and we need more shelters or warming centers in the cold weather months, depending where you live,
Mhm.
whatever it might be. And people say, yes, I'm totally behind that. Don't build it where I live. Or homeless people will start coming to my neighborhood.
Mhm.
And this mindset is just so different than not in my backyard. So I don't know. I'm just very touched by that.
And in the Atlanta area, 1 in 8 families are dealing with some type of food insecurity.
Mm.
These are hardworking families. They're challenged right now.
Yeah, the idea that you could be working hard and showing up at a job, but being held back permanently,
Mhm.
that's quite a thing.
One of the stories that I wanted to share was this meat and cheese versus peanut butter and jelly experience that I had.
Ah,
So we collect both meat and cheese sandwiches on white or wheat bread, as well as peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I've had a number of scenarios where I've been delivering food and those who the food was going to are standing right there waiting for it. I personally thought, wow, like a ham and cheese sandwich or a turkey and cheese sandwich would be desired over peanut butter and jelly. And of course, we have to be careful giving peanut butter and jelly to children if
yeah.
there's allergies or so. But I had a very awkward encounter, and this man said to me, "Don't you have peanut butter and jelly? Don't you have peanut butter and jelly?" And I was, "Yeah, but it's still in my car. I thought you would prefer this." And and then he smiled at me, and he had a beautiful smile, and I didn't make the connection, but he didn't have teeth.
Ah,
And so for somebody who has dental issues, peanut butter and jelly, they can gum down
yeah.
and still get high protein and have energy and feel fueled for the day versus having to chew. So I felt pretty ignorant. I learned a lot that day, things I never thought about.
Yeah.
Again, there's certain groups that prefer white bread versus wheat bread, and it's about access to a restroom. If somebody that is receiving the sandwiches doesn't have access to a restroom, they're looking for a lower fiber diet when
Yeah.
we're thinking healthier would be higher fiber.
Does it make any difference, do you think, that these sandwiches are all made by volunteers and collected? I guess what I'm trying to say is there love in every sandwich. I mean, does it feel different? Does it matter that it's a community effort and not we hired this one person and they have a small factory that churns out sandwiches on a conveyor belt?
Yes, none of these are conveyor belt sandwiches. These are all made with love. Often there's little notes attached to the sandwiches. Some of the school groups, some of the
Hmm.
community groups will put little notes on it. I actually had some sandwiches delivered. Somebody took a press and made a smiley face with the sandwiches. It was super, super cute. I'm very proud to be one wheel in this connection here. I'm proud when I have 300 sandwiches that come through our garage refrigerator each week, sometimes more. Martin Luther King Day is a tremendous day of service in the Atlanta area, and I think across the US.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful day that people of different faiths come together and make sandwiches. I have a group of teenagers that have started in our neighborhood using our neighborhood community center. They got the donated space. It's a work group. They work with the local organizations to get donated supplies. And similar to the event that you were at, they had a goal of 1,000 sandwiches the first year. We said, you can come here and make sandwiches with your family, or you can make sandwiches at home in your community
Hmm.
and drop them off here. We'll make sure they get where they need to be without much advertising, minus a neighborhood Facebook group. We collected over 5,000 sandwiches,
Wow.
and we had over 72 pounds of fruit.
Hmm.
And it was just so powerful, especially in the midst of COVID-19 when people felt isolated, yet they came together. And people sometimes they don't know how to get involved. And what I say is you can get involved when it works for your family. There's no obligation. If soccer practice is canceled on a Tuesday night and you have some time, it takes 10 minutes to make 20 sandwiches.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful family bonding activity. And everybody goes to sleep feeling better.
To me, I mean, is that a connection to God? That feeling that you've been able to do something for someone that is really helpful?
I haven't thought about it that way, but yes,
Mm.
maybe it's a calling for all of us. Or it brings out that calling.
What keeps you going and forging ahead? Because now you've done this for years, week after week.
It's a family commitment that we've made,
Mm-hmm.
and we do it together. Yes, I'm the one who gets all the text messages. You asked how this works. Every Wednesday from 7 to 7, I open my garage and I have a refrigerator in the garage,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody can come in and drop sandwiches off in the refrigerator. They can drop off a bag of apples. They can drop off a box of granola bars, as little as much. It could be one loaf of sandwiches, one small bag of apples. We have a sign-in sheet. We're very serious about temperature control. We want to make sure, especially this group that may not have access to healthcare, that sandwiches stay at appropriate temperature and people are wearing gloves when they're making them. Then at 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock at night, I turn in my numbers, how many sandwiches I've collected. And we've also contacted a number of local organizations in our area to ask, what are your needs this week? We're also connected with school counselors. There's a women and children's kitchen that serves lunch here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we try and get them sandwiches by lunchtime on Thursday.
Mm.
So when those moms and young children are leaving, they're not going to have access to healthy food Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They're leaving with a sleeve of sandwiches so they can feed their family for the weekend.
Wow.
So we also have volunteer drivers that will come pick sandwiches up and take them, for example, to that women and children's kitchen. So I have high school students, I have retirees. So there's a number of people that I've gotten to meet in the neighborhood, people of all different faiths. Again, as you said, we all have this common desire to serve and to serve our community. It's lovely. And some of the sandwiches go to faith organizations, some go to more community based organizations, but they're small and large. Basically, you make the sandwiches, they come here, and then within 24 hours, they are in the hands of somebody that, what our hope is that it's going to help somebody live to their full potential.
The website is thesandwichproject.org. And have you experienced people in other metropolitan areas or even small places hear about this and decide to use it as a model in some way?
Yes. So, two examples I would love to share. One of which is just in recent months, there's been a number of hurricanes that have impacted Georgia, North Carolina.
Yeah.
We were contacted by those communities to say, can you help? Can you bring sandwiches here? We are fortunate that we had a wonderful donation last year. We were able to get a refrigerated van. And so that's a new arm to our grassroots nonprofit that's all volunteer based. But we had 4 trucks in the end go and deliver sandwiches and healthy food to hurricane evacuees. It was very powerful.
Yeah.
So that's one example that we're getting calls nearby that's a little different, but very powerful in itself. We have heard from 2 communities in the US that are interested in creating something similar. We've been mentoring them, answering questions, sharing the systems that we've created. And they've been sharing systems with us too, because this takes a lot of coordination. Those other individuals that have contacted us want to create something similar in their communities, all different faiths, backgrounds. And if you look at who is part of the Sandwich Project's board, we are all different faiths and backgrounds and love each other, support each other. We've become friends. We all have aging parents. We have different scenarios, and we're a community in itself. So if ever there's a time that somebody can't do something or somebody can't collect, there's backup that occurs.
This is just so beautiful. When we heard that was the service project and we went in and actually had the chance to wash our hands, put on the gloves, follow all the rules, and work a little bit. But mostly I just saw so many people who were all there from the local area, really excited to pitch in together. This is just a beautiful example of meeting a community need. And you've told us several things that you learned that have really educated me already.
Thank you for having this conversation, for sparking service, for sparking a dialogue about those experiencing food insecurity and how we all can make a difference, small or large. There's something that each of us can do.
Many thanks to Laura Baldwin for speaking with us. This episode was produced by Heather Bigley. Our production team includes Aaliyah Ebert, Katarina Martinich, and James Sturdivant. Our post-production sound designers are Ashton Parkinson and Lauren Sandberg. In Good Faith is committed to the idea that we all benefit from hearing people of widely varying backgrounds share their personal experience with faith and belief. In fact, we think people with such experience deserve some of our best listening. Have you shared one of these episodes with a friend? I hope you will. And I hope you will leave a review at Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get our podcasts. That really does help spread the word. In Good Faith is a production of BYU Radio. I'm Stephen Kapp Perry. I hope you'll join us again soon, right here in Good Faith. If you're like me, you want to stay informed, even about some of the tough topics that have to be discussed. But so much of the discussion just really doesn't move anything forward or generate light as much as heat. That's where Top of Mind comes in, a BYU original podcast. They understand how polarizing those kind of conversations can be, and they want to help us engage in that challenge while actually learning something. Their goal is developing empathy for others. Top of Mind can help you clarify your own views, become an effective advocate for the things you care about, and even challenge your way of thinking so you can become a better citizen, a kinder neighbor. Listen to Top of Mind now on the BYU Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts.